I don't care who you are, nothing beats a good comic book video game. Yeah, I might be biased being the comics editor of WhatCulture.com and all that, but it's true. Combine one of the most influential mediums of the 20th century with one of the most innovative, and you have a match made in heaven. Most of the time. Because yes, while there have been some truly fantastic comic book video games, others have missed the mark by a long shot. That makes talking about the truly great comic book video games even more noteworthy. So, I'm Ian from WhatCulture, and here are 10 comic book video games that nailed their characters. Number 10, Deadpool. Deadpool's self-titled game may not have played as well as fans would have hoped, but developers High Moon Studios knocked it out of the park with his offbeat comedy and constant never-ending commentary on everything going on around him. You could totally argue that this version of the character was a bit too annoying for his own good, but when you've got veteran voice actor Nolan North contributing 3 voices, all Deadpool's just different parts of his psyche, to bring him to life, it's mighty special indeed. Back to the gameplay, and for the most part your combination of twin pistols and sword swipes were just to facilitate carving a path through levels as fast as possible. The jokes came fast, the action is relentless, and when all is said and done, if you like your Deadpool irreverent, your action mostly throwaway, and your wider cameos aplenty, it ticks all boxes with a huge amount of confidence. Number 9, The Punisher. Volition's work on The Punisher holds up as one of the most iconic depictions of a superhero, or whatever you want to call Frank Castle really, in any video game. From the second we saw the hulking character model the team had put together and heard Thomas Jane's croaky drawl coming through, that much was set in stone. Gameplay-wise, you'd receive score boosts for punishing opponents in as many creative ways as possible, mostly dictated by floating skulls on the ground. The Punisher of Garth Ennis's Max run was no stranger to eviscerating his opponents, so in-game this meant you'd leave limbless bodies strewn across hallways, with others half dissected by meat grinders, or maybe, just maybe, missing an eye thanks to a handy industrial drill. It was a truly grim title, but with Frank's black sense of humor present and correct throughout, it let you play as someone who's completely lost themselves to their inner psychopath, but is more than fine with doing it. Number 8, Superman. Superman: Shadow of Apocalypse. It's slim pickings for Superman fans when it comes to video games, but there are a couple of exceptions. Outside the 2 Injustice titles, which has Superman as the villain after accidentally killing Lois Lane, so that doesn't count as a great representation of the character, there's only really Superman Returns and Superman: Shadow of Apocalypse. The former definitely nailed the ability to kick off the ground and take to the skies whenever the feeling struck, but Super's array of abilities was better realised in the latter. Not to mention its story and cast of characters were not the overblown likes of the Silver Age, whilst it was essentially a game version of the brilliant Superman the Animated Series. You were free to speed through the skies in semi-open world segments, pick up and fling vehicles at enemies, deploy eye lasers, frost breath, and super speed all in quick succession. Controls took a bit of getting used to, but the power trip you could go on as the embodiment of Kal-El was perfect for the time. Not to mention tapping the animated series cast meant the mighty Clancy Brown returned as Lex Luthor. Number 7, The Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk: Ultimate Destruction. All you need to do when it comes to creating the best version of the Hulk is allow for something that lets you smash together as much stuff as possible. That being everything from elbow-dropping tanks to leaping on Harrier jets in midair, lobbing soldiers straight into the sides of buildings, and bounding off around the city in humongous arcing leaps. Granted, a big piece of the Hulk/Banner coin is the latter's fractured personality as he deals with so much addictive escapism, but the only games to let you play as Bruce Banner are either the 2003 movie tie-in, the less you say about that the better, or the LEGO Marvel releases. Instead, I'm doubling down on destruction. And as the name implies, Ultimate Destruction was just one big excuse for radical entertainment to let you mangle and tear apart as much of the scenery as possible. Number 6, The X-Men. X-Men Legends. Before Arkham, and before the dizzying heights of Insomniac's Spider-Man, comic book fans had Raven Software's Marvel games. Whether it was X-Men Legends or later Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Raven's isometric dungeon crawlers were the perfect RPG/brawlers for the discerning true believer. But while Ultimate Alliance may have upped the scale to 1000, their first 2 games dedicated exclusively to the X-Men are still the studio's best efforts. X-Men Legends and its 2005 follow-up, Rise of Apokolipse, were love letters to the team created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and later perfected by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and countless others. Despite juggling a cast of dozens. Each title retained a distinguishable voice for each character and included hundreds of brilliant references and Easter eggs for hardcore X fans to gobble up. Just roaming around the X Mansion in the first game was great enough, but by the time the sequel came around, players got to visit the likes of Genosha and the Savage Land. Throw in some nifty cinematics from Blur Studios, and you had what was effectively the jewel in the crown of Activision's early noughties Marvel games. Also, it introduced the world to Steve Blum's Wolverine, so there's that too. Number 5, Wolverine. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Some characters have plenty more depth on the page than their other incarnations may account for, but as far as video games are concerned, Wolverine is a fiery ball of razor-sharp claws, the occasional cigar, angular hair shapes, and the bub sign-offs. He's a dynamite explosion of pure violence. That scene from X-Men 2 where he stabs the living daylights out of Stryker's man in the kitchen, not giving the barest care in the world to human decency. He had a primal rage to express, and it's that cocktail of psychotic rage that Raven perfectly capture in X-Men Origins. The very first thing you do is plummet from the heavens themselves, your fall being cushioned by one random soldier who gets completely obliterated. From there on in, you'll discover that Logan's character model is layered from skeleton to muscle and then flesh, meaning bullets riddle through him and chunks go flying, only for his healing factor to kick back in and repair the damage. Combine the two, and you've got ludicrously OTT fight scenes, followed up by a ventilated Wolverine standing stock still as his body slowly sews itself back together. Pure brilliance. Number 4, Joker, Batman Arkham. You just can't beat Mark Hamill's Joker overall, as although the end of Asylum had him morph into a giant Titan Joker, City put him on the back burner until the big finale, and Night was just sheer overkill as he refused to leave your thoughts alone. The series still has enough incredible moments worth cataloguing forevermore. Even from the opening where Joker springs his trap, Hamill's deliciously evil giggles and general line delivery comes from an actor who positively adores the character they're bringing to life. He would then go on to have the perfect death for the character in Arkham City, noting after Batman said he would have saved him from an illness despite all the crimes he's committed, that the situation alone was, quote, actually pretty funny. Arkham Knight had a little bit too much of him crowbarred in for my liking, but the finale where Batman and Joker's ideologies literally face off inside Bruce's mind is the stuff of fanfiction made real. Number 3, Transformers, the Cybertron games. Aha, I hear you say. The Transformers were a cartoon, not a comic book, so how could they count? Well, you're half right, because while the Autobots and the Decepticons were made famous by their iconic 80s TV series, their lore and history was all created by Marvel. I won't bore you with the details behind that, because Netflix's The Toys That Made Us already did a great episode on it, but I will talk to you about High Moon's Transformers titles. Sadly, another studio gobbled up by the Call of Duty money-making behemoth, High Moon crafted a prequel to the original TV show during the peak of Michael Bay's gaudy movies, providing a refuge for old-school fans to turn to, while Bumblebee was pissing all over John Turturro. Both titles are immaculate, with the first involving a sequence where you ride around on space worms, yes, and the latter even having you team up with Metroplex, a living Autobot city thing. The gameplay was also spot on, putting players in the shoes of their favourite Transformers on either side of the Autobot-Decepticon divide. Of course, Activision being Activision, they couldn't let fans have a good thing and shafted High Moon off and ended the series on a cliffhanger just as it was about to head to Earth. Bleh. Number 2, Batman Arkham. Naturally, the series that revolutionized how everyone thinks of superhero video games from top to bottom also has within it the greatest depiction of Batman ever seen in the video game medium. From the grace, fluidity, and especially the brutality of how Bruce moves, to the utilization of his various gadgets, appearances of things like the Batmobile and Batwing, or just a smattering of sidekicks and villains that help round out his motivations, Rocksteady's take on the character, at least in the first 2 games, is one for the ages. And number 1, Peter Parker, Spider-Man PS4. Insomniac's Spider-Man title is only half a year old, but I'm yet to hear another example of a superhero game that has executed as unique or authoritative an adaptation of comic book source material than it. Boasting a splendid story that marries Spidey's past with his present, Insomniac put together their own brilliant interpretation of the Marvel Universe and supplemented it with genius movement and combat. Throw in an incredible performance by Yuri Lowenthal, and you have just about the best superhero portrayal in the gaming medium. It's a true system seller, and brilliant from top to bottom. You won't find a more authentic comic book video game.